the worksheet link here in the chat. So the plan today is Kayvon has been working to see if we can demonstrate one of the RSong contracts against the public testnet. So this is, just as a reminder, this is a testing space. We try things, and sometimes they go well and sometimes they don't go well, but what's important is that we're trying and we're learning together during that process. So that's one of the things we'd like to do today. We have the opportunity to discuss recent and upcoming changes planned for RNode, especially for people who are dApp developers. This is going to be something that you might want to think about as you're working on your particular dApp. Happy to address any questions that you might have, and certainly I'd like to speak to some of the challenges we're seeing related to time to propose, both on the public testnet and our development testnet, and I can give you more details on how we are addressing that issue as a development team. So right now, the public testnet is running the latest release, which is RNode 9.6, and the worksheet points you specifically to where you can find binaries for that or the Docker image. The worksheet will also point you to the Bootstrap address as well as the run command. I just want to call out a couple things related to the run command. If you're not currently running a node against the public testnet, you need to do it the following. Let me share my screen, that'll make it way more interesting. Okay, so if you're looking at my screen on the right, a run command, you need to specify the store type. And that is V2, that is specifying that we're going to be using the new RSpace. It is important to continue specifying a map size for your database. The other thing that's really important is to call out which network that you want to connect to, and we are connecting to testnet 1.2, and then followed by the Bootstrap address, and if you typically include it, your private key can all go into that run command. So let me just pause there. Is there anyone who would like to connect to the public testnet and is currently unable to? Okay. What you see on the left side of my screen is I have my node is running over here. I just started it a few minutes ago, so it's in catch-up mode. It's receiving lots of blocks and slowly adding them to build its view of the DAG. And then this tab right here is a view of the log of the Bootstrap node, which is interesting to see. I will call out, one of the things I wanted to make sure that I show you is that if you were to connect, if you were to specify the wrong network ID in your run command, so that somebody started a node and did not specify the correct, there was a mismatch between network IDs, and in that scenario, those nodes will not connect because they're running on they have mismatched network IDs. So you would see that if you were the node with the mismatched ID, you would also see that in your log, and it would indicate. It would also your log would also, the message would also tell you what the network is that you were trying to, of the node that you were trying to connect to, and you could update it and restart in your run command. Yeah, Ed is asking someone to share an example Hokan configuration file in the Discord channel. Is that something we can do, Tomasz?
No hurry on that.
Okay.
Days are fine.
Oh, days, excellent. That's scads of time then. Okay, so if no one is having challenges connecting to the public testnet, I'm wondering, Kayvon, are you prepared at this point to allow us to participate with you as you attempt to deploy some the RSong acquisition contract to the public testnet?
Yes, and I have some announcements or cautions to make.
Okay, sure. And if you could please, like, just take us from a beginner level and make sure that we understand what the contract is intended to do and all that good stuff.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
So a couple of things before I start sharing my screen. One is this is going to it's going to take a while because these are pretty large files, and I've tested things last night locally, and things seem to be working. This is I'm going through this test of the community hangout and hitting these servers with you guys. So there might be some issues that we have to resolve as we move forward. And having said that, let me start sharing my screen, please. Share screen, desktop one. There we go. Hopefully you could see my screen.
I can see.
All right, and I'm hoping that the font and everything is okay.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Cool. So here, basically, these are my environment file variables. There we go. And usually I test locally, so I'm manipulating these environment files to point to different location. In this case, we're going to use the devnet, and here is the URL on line 6 in here that I highlighted. That's where we're going to be hitting, and I'm setting the environment variable to gRPC server. We're going to start running things from command line. We're going to use SBT. So basically, we're compiling and running the code in real time. Nothing up our sleeves here. Just to let you know, down here, I'm logged into, in the bottom part of the screen, I'm logged into node 1, which is the one that I showed you on my environment variable. And just to verify, here is the environment variable for this thing, for the gRPC server. I'm going to switch to IntelliJ for a second to walk you through what it is that we're doing. So we're going to first, might help if I show you the directory structure. So our song right now is under development for 3 purposes. One is to make sure that we are keeping up with the latest core platform development. Secondly, Greg has tasked us to make sure that we can run against the network of validators. And then there is also some more requirements that have come down the pipeline. So what I'm showing you is what's what I've been working out, what I've been working. So it's real-time code that it's not in the master branch yet. You have to look at the dev branches. The project is 3 components. Core is the libraries that's shared among all the 3 pieces. And then there is the ACQ for the acquisition. That's where we initiate the ingestion pipeline. And then there is the proxy, which is basically it is what it says it is. It's a proxy between the HTTP world and the RNode world. So from a very high level, from a very abstract level, it converts HTTP request response to gRPC request response against the node. And hopefully that makes sense. So that's the preliminaries, and bear with me because I haven't looked at this part in a while. Kelly, you asked about the contract, and the contract is the RSong. I don't want to say the name. I'm not allowed to say the name. But here is basically the. One second, I don't think I'm in the right place.
I thought it was the acquisition. Oh.
Yeah, we are. Retrieve song. The user stuff is not here. Did I put it? Oh, sorry. 1 second. 1 second. I need to do a little bit of cleanup there. So let's go to core. Proxy. Okay, so I just have to walk through the code and see. Well, for the purpose of, I think bear with me for a minute. For the purpose of demo, we're exercising the retrieve song and we're exercising the store song. we're not doing any of the user stuff. So that stuff is not in here. I remember what I did now. Hopefully that makes sense. And what we're going to do is run the program first, install all the songs, or deploy all the songs to DevNet. All right. So I just built the project.
Kevin, so you are going to use DevNet right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can also change if you want me to go somewhere else.
Well, that depends on you. I can, wait a second. Yeah, I've disabled I blocked the port. It's enabled right now, so you can go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm in node 1. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I got the Docker. I just did a Docker PS to see what's running in there, and I want to look at the logs. So that would be Docker logs -f, and then I need to give it the process ID, which is DD20. So we're gonna monitor the logs as I start this process. Okay.
There's a neglected block.
All right, so if we go through the code in here, so we're gonna look at the Bootstrap for our song. And in the Bootstrap, you basically is the main part. And you pass command line variables or parameters to tell it what to do. In this case, we want to install the contract and deploy the songs. And so that would be passing the install, which is right here. So we're going to basically execute line 50 and anything that line 50 calls, and go from there. Right. So, oops. 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong. We're going to install the contract, deploy the assets. So we're going to go with all the defaults. If you don't give it any command line parameters, it's going to do work all, which is do all the things that I just said. So we just go ACQ for the project and then do a run. And let's see what it does. So again, this is going to be a lengthy process. One of the things that I need to do is what the oh, typo. I put ACA instead of ACQ. So it's going to first transcode all the binary assets, and then after it's done doing all the binary assets, it's going to push them to arching. And the reason it does that today is because there are relationships between these binary assets. And so the easiest way to maintain all those relationships was to process all of them, and if all of them are successful, then push the entire catalog to our song. Naturally, a faster way would be try to process one and then push one, but then I had to do additional work to make sure that I maintain those relationships afterwards. So that's within my pipeline of things to do, to basically process subsets and push subsets instead of what we're doing now. So this whole process will take this transcoding may take a few minutes. These are pretty large files. What we do basically, we look at the binary, and we do a decode to string, and then we go through those strings and we sub-chunk them into smaller pieces so we could process them faster through RNode. And that's just the recursive call that puts it's a fancy way of saying just every every 1024 bytes put a carriage return. All right, so you can see that the contract got pushed to the node 1. So, and right now it's going through pushing all the songs. What it does is it deploys all the entire catalog, and the IDs for those catalogs are on top here. And then it does one deploy at the end. So it's 11 binary files on I think the largest file is about 6 meg. So it's 11 of those. It pushes all of those at the end as a deploy. So this is going to be a pretty large block.
Do you know how large? Megabytes?
Yeah, I had done that calculation at one point, but so if you give me a few minutes, I can. You're not after an exact number, right?
No, I'm curious about ballpark, and even if you just even if you just want to recollect.
Yeah, so there is 3. Those 3 songs, they're each on average about 5 meg. So that's 15 meg. There are 3 art files. Those are each about 3K. And then the metadata, all in all the metadata is about 1K. So I would say it's about 15.5 meg.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. So as this is going through, let me go through the contract. Oops. I'm trying to learn how to use IntelliJ. There, oh, it's right in my face. All right, so yeah, so we exercise the store, and we're also going to exercise the retrieve contract. So in the store, we basically store these assets under a name, and that name is, there we go, song ID out. And then later on, when we want to retrieve that, we basically retrieve it into a name, which is song data out. And then we're going to listen to the name song data out when we want to fetch the song. And since this is a real-time application, it doesn't make sense to delay this last call on line 23. So we do a prefetch, and what that means is, right when we're done storing the song, we call this line and we push the song to this song ID out. Then when we get a request to fetch that song, we basically do a listen at name. So we don't have to go through the contract and retrieve the song. Hopefully that makes sense. Maybe if I show you the code, that would make more sense. So if I go back to Bootstrap, let me know, Kelly, and everybody else online, if I'm getting into too much detail or if I need to provide more detail.
No, it's perfect, Kayvon.
Okay.
For me, it's good level.
So, thanks. So if we go to acquisition, which if you could think of the acquisition as the start of the poor man ingestion pipeline. So we did we went with the default, and so if we just go there, and it's basically just a big monadic structure. So it installs a contract. If that's successful, it does a store bulk. Store bulk, we could go look at that as well, but it's just a fancy way of doing what I said earlier, that we have a big list of assets that we're going to push to our node. So it does a bulk store, and if you look at it, it's just a traverse on the store, and the store is just storing individual assets, which if you go down, it's this line here. It's this line here, which does a deploy. It translates stuff into that row line code, and I'll drill that there too. But I want to go back to first finish this line of thought, and then if you have questions, we could look at those as well. So it puts some logging, and then it does a propose, because by now everything is pushed to the node. And here is the prefetch that I was talking about. So basically it gets the IDs, and then it constructs the name. And all it does, it says, if your name is broke.jpg, the name that I'm going to put you at is going to be called broke.jpg.out. So it's just a little convention to make sure that we fetch what we mean to fetch. And then it does a simple count. These are just verifications, so I can go through the log and see things worked out, and then does a propose, because remember that's a second contract, and we can't really merge these two proposes. First, we have to have something in the block before we could do a prefetch on it. So that's why there are these two proposes there. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's check the logs before, see if we pushed everything into blockchain. I don't see. Let me. So basically here, what I'm looking for is, looks like we may have some problems. These warns shouldn't be there. So what it's telling us here is it tried to prefetch all these assets, and it wasn't able to. So these are I'm not sure why, but that contract didn't work.
Is it the contract that didn't work, or that it's not yet proposed in a block?
So let's see. It went through, right? And by the time that it gets here, it will only get to this part if the first propose had been successful.
Okay.
But it wasn't able to fetch the name back. So basically, it wasn't able to do a prefetch. I need to look at the logs.
Can you do this again? Can you just restart prefetch?
Yeah, and we could actually save a little bit of time by. We have two options. As you can see, well, let's see, we got time. So since the contract is there, I don't need to redeploy the contract. I'm just going to redeploy the assets.
And how do you programmatically check that the propose was successful? And I apologize, I stepped out for a few minutes. Are we on the public testnet or on DevNet?
DevNet.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're in DevNet, and if the propose fails, so you get an error log. Basically, this monadic structure won't. If this propose fails, you get this structure fails, and then it just bails out, and then you get error logs. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, because like there's a couple of expected responses from propose. There's, I forget, success.
Yeah.
Deploy, another deploy is in progress, which I get a lot on testnet. And there are no new blocks is the third kind of thing I see a lot. But So I was asking because what I was seeing on testnet with the wallet interaction is that there's another deploy in progress that comes back a lot.
Yeah, so you get that. I mean, I don't know if you're running against the sync node or you're running against a host of nodes, but are you asking me why you get those? Did you
No,
want
I'm just confirming that you're checking the error condition or another deploys in progress or something like that.
Yeah. So those are all those cases that you mentioned. Those are errors. They're on success.
Got it.
And the code is smart enough to look for success, and anything besides success is deemed as an error.
Cool.
And so it will short circuit this structure. But and it also, as you can see, these log warns, basically it's short circuited because it put something and it successfully put something there, but it wasn't able to retrieve it at a name. So basically, it was what we see here is we weren't able to do this. We weren't able to do this part. So that's why I'm kind of going through the logs here, just to. Unfortunately, there is so many of you I can't really figure. Oh, so here, what I would this is from us. This is one of the songs, and so we push this in. And what I should see here is this contract, the retrieve contract.
Go back to the log.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what I would expect right after this is right after this part, it does the prefetch, and the prefetch is basically this part of the contract, but it will only do this part of the contract from line 23 on if we were able to listen at this name, the song ID. And that's the error that we see in this part. I don't see this happening locally. I'm not sure why it's happening here. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. So that's what these errors are. It's going to try to listen to these names. It didn't find anything. And as you can see, it says, here is the name, the tinyhuman.jpg, but it came with an empty vector. So it deems that as an error.
Is that neglected block the one that you think the deployment is in?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So there's a neglected block in the log.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah.
Where?
And I'm trying to decide if it's so. Shoot. Recording invalid. No, that's a different one.
Do you want me to go up or down?
Scroll up, please.
It has happened on FreeNode.
920. It's around 922.
922.
Go up. So where we saw the Euphoria deployment. Yeah. Okay. So the compute is with the line that says computed parent post state for block 922. And then it records a neglected invalid block. Is that
recorded invalid block? Neglected invalid block. I don't know.
That's not. Is that your block? Do you think?
Receive invalid block.
All right, wait, let me ask a different question. You're queuing node, you're controlling node 1, correct?
I am going against node 1, yes.
Okay, so you're not running another node that's acting as a validator.
I am not.
Okay.
And So this is the node server that we hit.
Okay. Yeah.
I can try a different node.
No. So we had another option a minute ago. Was the other option was to redeploy the assets?
Yep, I can do a redeploy.
Let's try that.
So
Kevin, can I ask you about this deploy? I seen it in the code that you're deploying the contents of all the binaries, right, in one deploy, or
yeah, correct. You're correct. I create a big list of all the binaries, and right now it just it creates that list and it pushes the entire list, and that it's done that way because I need to make sure either a catalog is processed or I need to fail. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah. And so now when you're saying that you don't have data on this name, how this is possible if you're sending everything in one chunk, or this is not related? This is not good to me.
So let's walk through it together. I want to make sure that I'm answering the right question. Again, stop me if I'm getting out of.
What I understand is after you deploy all this stuff in one deploy. Oh, I see.
It's not one deploy. It's one propose.
I see. It's not one deploy.
Right.
Yeah,
So
what is one deploy?
he's batching a series of deploys into one proposed block.
Oh, not in one
Exactly.
deploy, one propose. Okay, understood. Okay,
Exactly.
thanks.
So just to make sure that I drive the point. So if we look at the Bootstrap for acquisition, you do this. Store bulk, and all store bulk is doing is basically traversing through the assets and doing an individual store. And a store is a deploy.
Okay, I see now. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, so so basically I'm going to do a deploy, and just to show you on the code, so deploy. God, I really don't like IntelliJ. There we go. So we gotta just process the assets and push the assets again. That's basically what I'm gonna do. I don't need to redeploy the contract because I'm gonna assume the contract got in there since we saw the output. Everybody agree? Cool. All right, acquisition gets fired. So are the testnet and devnet on the same versions, or?
No, no. DevNet's running the latest dev, right, Tomasz? Where did we land? We went back and forth so many times yesterday. So yeah, and just to give some clarity, so DevNet is running the latest version of the software that's in our development branch. It is, Tomasz, how many validators?
5.
And what's the auto cadence for propose? Or
1
for
minute.
deploy propose?
Propose is every 1 minute, and deploy is contract dupe, but also every minute.
Right.
I've been running here for at least 10 minutes. It hasn't come back on testnet.
So,
all right, hold that thought, Jim. What are you observing, Kevin?
I didn't realize about the there is a propose every 1 minute, and I wonder if there is if that's interfering with what I'm doing.
It should. I mean, you would you would see the message another propose already in process. That would be recorded on your side as an error.
Yeah,
If I understand your project correctly.
Yes, it would show circle.
I haven't seen that happening in log, and you haven't returned an error, have you?
No.
Okay.
But is it possible that your deploy is split into multiple deploys?
Oh.
Because the propose can happen between,
That's a possibility.
Yeah, I don't. So I mean, so right now we're pushing everything to RNode 1 again, and I see this. These are all deploys. I don't know if that makes any. I mean, I don't really. The only reason I do a batch propose is to save bandwidth. I don't have any dependency on it.
Okay, I thought. Okay, that's good to know.
But what I am concerned about is a potential race condition where I do. Well, no, that shouldn't be there because no, yeah, I don't know if that interferes.
You mentioned that you have some kind of relations that you need to update. So can you say something about that?
Yeah. So as you can see here, for example, let's take a look at broke. The asset broke has multiple components. It has a JPEG. It has two binary files for the 3D version and the stereo version, and it has some metadata. So that's what? That's 4 pieces of data, right? And the way, so that relationship needs to be preserved. The way Arsenal looks at asset is it doesn't know how to put these things together unless it gets a manifest file that outlines the relationship. So in a manifest file, it says that the asset, in order to make a product called broke, you need to have all these pieces. And that's the relationship that needs to be preserved at the individual product level. And then there is another relationship at the catalog level, because the mobile app is designed in a way that it needs everything. Again, remember that we did all of this within the span of a month or so. So it was a proof of concept, and we haven't revisited some of those. The mobile app wants everything. So for that reason, this thing is working that if there is any problem in the entire catalog, meaning all the songs that you see, then it won't push anything at all. Did I answer your question?
I see. And now you have all of these things in one deploy, right?
Yeah, that's the part that I do in one. No, I do in one propose. I deploy individual parts, right? And then I do one propose at the end, and then the UI knows that if it needs to fetch broke, it needs to make 3 concurrent calls for the stereo, for the 3D, and then for the
I see.
JPEG. It also was a way to save bandwidth, to make it faster. We errored again.
Yeah, node 1 is consistently proposing invalid blocks. It's not just you. It received your deploy and proposed an invalid block, and then it received its automated dupe.row deploy and immediately proposed an invalid block.
So it's really easy for me to point to another node. I just have to change this environment.
Yeah, try node 4. We're seeing it in a couple nodes.
So I use this software called DearEnv. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Once I make a modification, it allows me to have environment variable per directory. So by change that, I just need to run that software. So now if I
Tomasz, can you confirm, Tomasz, can you confirm that the gRPC port is open for him to use node 4?
It is.
Thank you.
So I'm just going through this detail to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. All right, so we're going to hit node 4, and what that means is we're going to run acquisition again. I don't know if I have access to node 4, so I probably won't.
Yeah, you should be.
Okay. So SBT ACQ, and we're just gonna go run. Can I jump surf from here to there, or I need to go out?
Yeah, you can jump. You should be able to jump.
So if I just do this.
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I didn't realize you were SSH'd into Node 1.
Let me just upload the key in a sec.
So here on the right-hand side, that's a verification that we're running against Node 4 and port 40401, the default port for external gRPC. So what I was hoping to do, which I did, which I was doing, sorry?
Yeah, it's done, but you cannot jump from this host. You need to log out and
Okay. All right, so I just make this a 4. Yes. Perfect, thank you. So now if I do docker ps docker logs -f 4e823 4e823. All right.
Did you already do your deployments, Kevin? I lost track. Forgive me.
So what I've done is I did a SBT run, which
Okay.
is the deploy of the contract, installs the contract. I'm using RSON terms in case anybody's watching.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Kevin, is it split between several deploys? The batch upload?
Yeah, it's a serialized deploy of all the assets. It's not concurrent. So all these IDs that you see on the right-hand side on the top, they are being deployed one at a time.
Yeah, so propose can run between them. Can it be a problem?
Yeah, propose could run in between them. I don't have a, yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
So I mean, it makes sense to me that it should. It sounds logical because I don't have a dependency on the propose.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. The only dependency I have is to make sure that before I do a listen at name, they are proposed. Okay, so I see, I don't know what this message means at the end. It says,
Yeah, that's so that's related to this node is processing a block that it received. I haven't seen this node compute the deploys that you just put to it.
yeah, so I got these warns again, which means that my prefetch didn't work.
Well, it didn't work because the node hasn't proposed the block with those deploys yet.
Okay.
We can see that in logs.
All right. So
here it is. It's going to be this one. Ah, see where it says computed. Ah, they go so fast.
So if I run this again, then I should see stuff at the name.
Scroll up on the log a little bit. Stop. I think so. Let's try again.
All right. All right, so this time I'm just gonna do I don't need to deploy the contract, just the assets. It would be a redeploy, but that's okay. You just have a lot of data on those nodes.
Is the proxy suitable for for programming dApps? That deal with JSON primarily.
Yeah, so and that's easy enough to change. but yes, it is. And one of the things that I like to suggest, I don't have, it's in my work list to do, but there is this really, really cool project. Actually, a few of people that I used to work with have been working on it. It's from Lyft. It's called Envoy. And it bridges the gap between HTTP and gRPC. So literally, you could do all your stuff in protobuf and manage it and do the conversion to HTTP through Envoy. Take a look. You might find it helpful.
Yeah, Ed's using that, right?
I don't know if Ed, are you using Envoy?
Yeah, I am. There's a couple different configurations of it. Jack Mills back in, I don't know, August or something like that, put together some YAML configuration files and sketches of how Envoy could be used in the I don't know, I guess it's called, yeah, with gets and posts. And I think, I'm not sure if they're JSON payloads or what the payloads are.
All right, I see your deploys running again in Node 4.
Yeah.
So now we're looking in the top of your screen to maybe see something different.
Yeah, I'm hoping that since those names now exist by the time, I guess I could have just commented the code.
Shazam, look.
Okay, so now the crucial part.
Deployed it, yep.
Yeah, it wasn't able to retrieve the names again. Which is a shame if it's, so the stored bulk one file. What I don't understand is why do I see the output way after?
Why do you see the output way after?
Do you see what I'm saying? I'm seeing the output of proposing, but I saw the success on top here, that things were proposed.
Let's make sure we're being really careful with words. Is the success for the propose or the deploy?
These are success. This is a store bulk return list, right? Oh, you're right. Well,
So I had a related question, which is, I don't know the answer to, but when there's a propose and it comes back to the caller, is that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone through consensus yet, right? It's just queued up for consensus. I don't know the answer.
Cute. What? Well, so propose means that a validator has added a block to its DAG and has broadcast the addition of this new block to the network validators and observer nodes, and that both validators and observer nodes are reviewing that block and deciding whether or not to add it to their DAG.
Okay, but the same node, the proposing node, would definitely have it available for a listen for data name, for example. If that's
I think that's accurate. Like once a validator has proposed a block and you see the log of added to DAG, it should be available to listen.
Okay.
To that, yeah.
So
yeah, if you're listening to that validator, right?
Okay.
Do you listen to a specific validator?
I'm sorry, that was for me?
I don't know. I'm just to the world. Do you?
Yeah, I am. In this case, I'm pointing to node 4. And my assumption is that when I do a propose, it's a synchronous call. By the time it comes back, if it comes back successfully, my my block has been added, but I also understand what Ed is asking.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I have something to add to this question.
Yeah.
I tried to when I tried to run my code on the testnet, I was grabbing logs from the node with my key, so I see only my logs from my deploys, and actually I see only signs of deploy, but I still doesn't see signs that this code was executed and proposed. So my question is the consensus step included into propose mechanism, or node is just executing the code and throw away proposed block to the network? Or if there are some problems with the state of the DAG, this thing will be hanging until this conflict will be resolved.
Oh, that's an interesting thought to add to this problem. And I don't know the answer.
Okay.
And I think Kent could speak to it.
Sorry, Kevin, for
Oh, no problem. I'm just
interrupting.
taking time, making a minor modification so I can run the code faster.
I mean, I wonder, as we're talking about this, and we know from feedback that you guys have shared, Ed and Zipper and Kayvon, in particular, the next release will have the deploy ID, and I'm wondering if that would change. I know for sure it will require you to change how you look for your deploy in a block, but I don't think it will change the challenges that we're thinking about here related to where did it go and when should I expect to find it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm running one more test. Basically, I'm bypassing. Yeah, I didn't. I may have a mistake somewhere. I'm trying to bypass pushing the assets into the chain. Just do a listen at name part.
Oh wait, though, how did you get that error? What did you try
It's
to do?
probably it's a trap security on card exception run. It's probably something I did wrong.
Okay,
Deploy.
I've never seen that one before.
I have when I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's I don't think it's with the node. It's from me.
I think this list is empty and somewhere you're trying to get ahead.
Yeah.
Because this is there.
You're right. You're.
And can you use this code below and just comment out this first proposal and just do prefetch. Oh, you're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to bypass the processing of that, so I just leave it there. I'm not that good at making changes on the
While we're all watching. You guys are you're being a really good sport. This is important and it's helpful and it's part of the learning process is messy.
I have another shortcut which I usually do. So let me just do that real quick. Good thing I checked all my code in. So I'm just gonna comment out everything except for one of the shortest. Okay. All right. Okay, and then just because usually I fat finger stuff. I'm just going to do a real quick compile. And then if it passes, I run it. And so basically, I'm just doing the retrieve at name. If we go by the theory that the proposals have taken a long time, that part should work. All right.
But it also seems strange. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It seems strange that you get something for a name if this doesn't have consensus on the whole network, because someone else can put something other in this name. Which, how can you know if this is like a real data or just like a temporary?
Tomislav, when you're saying consensus, are you speaking to like finalization?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of finalization. Yeah.
And we know, hold on, this is important maybe. Tomasz, there's no finalization on this network right now, right?
Correct. Unless someone is running VDAG.
Nobody's running VDAG.
What is finalization? I actually don't know what's it.
Finalization, oh man, I hope I don't mess this up. Finalization.
This would be a good talk for like someone like Kent to give a session on. To
Yeah,
get
it really
people
would
up to
be,
speed.
because now I'm concerned what we're observing. I'm wondering if we require finalization for listening. Chris, does that sound right?
Well,
We should.
I don't know. It doesn't sound right in that it could be an unintended bug or an unintended consequence. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's what it should do, if that's what you mean by right.
Interesting.
As I understood it, some feature was being added so that you could listen on the finalized data, but obviously that could
just to make sure that we're all speaking the same vocabulary. The blockchain doesn't require finalization for it to work.
That's correct.
Right. You can start at Genesis and figure out what the fork tip choice should be and what the consensus is. Finalization, you can think of it as an optimization to be able to say, I don't need to go all the way back to the Genesis block to figure that out. Does that make sense?
I mean, consider selecting items from a list, or just having a counter. So the counter is initialized to 0. And 2 people on 2 nodes increment the counter. Well, each reads it and gets a 0 and adds 1 and gets 1. And obviously the block.
Right.
Okay,
so from your validator's perspective, that there's consensus on what that value is. And your validator can to determine what consensus is on that value based on the blockchain goes all the way back to the Genesis block to figure out what block it should view as the right one to have consensus on, right? Finalization is basically an optimization that says, okay, I don't need to go all the way back to Genesis because we've all agreed at this point somewhere in the blockchain that we're in consensus, and so it is finalized. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it doesn't question of, we each read the value locally to be 0, and that goes back to the Genesis block, whatever. And we add 1 to it and write it back. But and propose a block. So one of our blocks is going to be finalized and one of them won't be.
No,
No.
that's not an accurate way of how the blockchain works. That's why I say I think it'd be good that we maybe do a talk just on this subject. It'd be a good one for getting people up to speed on.
Yep.
I unfortunately have to run, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna jump
I'll
off.
call out. Thank you, Chris. We are at the top of the hour. I have a list of things that we've talked about today and things that we need to investigate. Does anybody else want to share thoughts of things that we want to make sure to take away from the session?
I like the
I need to run myself. Take
Okay.
care.
Thanks, Ed. Kayvon, thank you for bringing this to our session today. This was really helpful and certainly something that we need to continue thinking about also as we, all of us collectively continue to figure out how, how dApps run against a network and how we can get information off of the network as we are running those dApps. So this is really important work. Thank you for bringing it here today. We do intend, we released 9.6 this week. Our intention is not to release 9.7 until the end of the current sprint, which would be the week of June 10th. So that would be the next time that significant things might come to you guys as node operators. And so let's wrap here and we will meet again next week. Thank you so much.
May I just explain one thing real quick?
Yeah.
So what I did, I brought a local node up on the left-hand side, and I only run one asset to make sure that I save time, and that's just a JPEG. And everything went fine. I saw the output that I wanted, and what I was after was this this retrieve contract. So we did a successful propose. We pushed the Euphoria JPEG in there, and then we were able to turn around and get the name for it, which is just pointing at it, this 3A blah blah blah, and basically get the contents from there and push it to Euphoria JPEG.out. That was what I was after. So
cool. And now we have a work and didn't work scenario to compare against. Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
That was it for me. Thank you, and I'll work on this with Tomasz. Maybe we could see what else, something else that was going on.
Okay. Hey, Nutsaber, do you have a few minutes?
Yeah.
All right, great. I'll ping you a different Zoom link. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.